All right, good afternoon, traders. Today is April 23rd, 2025. My name is John Kerrigan. I am the lead instructor at the BYOB Trading Room. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's take a look at some charts this evening. All right. So for today, what did we have? We had a huge gap up. Okay, we closed day before right down here, 526. Okay, you can see we gapped all the way up to 540. All right, 526, a $15 gap. That's a huge gap. All right, we had overnight price action, all right, or pre-market. All right, we had green erases red right there. That was an entry for me. Green erases red. All right, when price gaps up like this, $15, $7, $8, $5, okay, VWAP does not come into play for about an hour, hour and a half until it's established because it's just moving up right from where it left off. All right, so price action took a green erases red entry right over this and sold into the top. Up here we have a downtrend line. You can see right there, sold right into that downtrend line right there. Price made a 10-minute downtrend from there under VWAP. I chose not to take it, okay, because of the huge gap up. I felt the market was overly bullish. I did not trust it to stay long other than to visit this uptrend line from back here. All right. I trusted it to go about that far, maybe into some support, maybe back to the midpoint. But after that, I felt like it was probably going to bounce back up there. Did it bounce? Yes. Did it bounce back up there? No. All right. From there, we made a lower high. Don't forget, we made a higher low too. Now we've got a double bottom. All right. So price action didn't quite get back up there. Got back up to the backside of the uptrend line and then rolled over, but failed to make a lower low. So who knows what happens tomorrow? We could go high, we could go low. It's anybody's game tomorrow morning. All right. So we'll see what happens. All right. So that's the 10-minute chart. Into the close, what do we have? Got a 10-minute downtrend coming into the close. The 3 EMA is underneath the 8 EMA. On the 2-hour chart, what do we have? We have a 2-hour uptrend coming into the close. See that? The 3 EMA is up over the 8 EMA. 2-hour uptrend coming into the close. On the daily chart, okay, got to take out that high. And did they take out that high? That high is 544.28. That high is 545.23. So price just made a new high. That's an uptrend. So they've negated the downtrend. Not a very convincing break, but they did break it up there, making a new high. See the valley low back up there over the 17. They took out the high up there. So SPY now in an uptrend on the daily chart. Okay, 2-day chart. We'll see. We'll have to take a look at that. Okay, so price action right here in the middle ground. All right. If we put the quad lines on there, you can see this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Okay, we're not in the lower third. All right, we're not in the upper third, so we're in the middle ground. So we're just neutral. Again, you move down, you give it up, that's neutral. You move up, you give it up, that's neutral. Price action caught underneath the downtrend line, caught underneath all-time high anchored VWAP. Price closed up here over the the 17 EMA, all right, with a higher low and a higher high, closing over a bullish cross right there on the daily chart. So price action now in an uptrend, all right, for SPY. Let's take a look at the 2-day chart. 2-day chart still in a downtrend. 3-day still in a downtrend. Weekly still in a downtrend. Okay, because we took out this low, and this low, and we made lower lows. So weekly still in a downtrend. Monthly is still in an uptrend. Okay, so we got a monthly chart in an uptrend, a weekly, a 3-day, and a 2-day still in a downtrend, a daily chart, all right, that is now just started or negated the downtrend and converted the uptrend right now because they made a higher high, all right, and on the 2-hour chart, all right, we have a 2-hour uptrend right there. Okay, so we'll see where we go tomorrow. We got a mixed bag coming into tomorrow. All right, got the mixed bag. We'll see what happens. All right, so there's SPY. On the game plan, the game plan was irrelevant. All right, why? Because we gapped up way over the green line, way over the pivot, way over the red line. Okay, so the game plan was irrelevant. But green erases red was still relevant in opening up this morning. Okay, so there's SPY. On the 2-hour chart, I can put it on the 10 right there. Okay, so you had a 10-minute downtrend right there that pulled back to the midpoint. All right, if you want to see where the midpoint is, all right, I take the quad lines. Here's the low and up to the high. Here's the midpoint. You can see price pulls back to the midpoint and finds support not once but twice so far. We'll see if they can rally back up there. If you look over here to the left, you can see got a little bit of support. You've got this open gap that was an open gap up there. So we gapped the open gap right there. Okay, so we still got like an open gap that kind of got filled on the way down right there. So open gap right into this area right here. So that open gap got filled today right there. Between this closing candle and this opening candle right there. You can see price came down and filled that gap. All right, so there's the 10-minute chart. Okay, and you can see the game plan was irrelevant. Why? Because we gapped way up over the green line, the pivot, and the red line. All right, let's take a look at what trades I made. All right, so trades today, I traded some Google calls, all right? So on the Google calls, I bought those into the close last night, sold those this afternoon into the highs, all right? Captured 205. Had some puts, all right, that I was underwater on, and on that wave down, I doubled down on the puts and closed those out for a positive. MSTR, all right? MSTR had some puts. It was in a downtrend. I scalped that for 95. Had some calls, the 550 calls and the 560 calls. Made about 900, almost 900 on the 560 calls. Scalped about 100 on the 560 calls. So I got 550 and 560. Almost 900 on the 550s, 100 on the 560s. All right. Also had some 0 DTE 545 calls that I thought might develop into something, but they couldn't make an equal high or a higher high. So I closed those out for a $12 gain, and that's all I got from those. So that's all I got today right there, which winds up being about $1,500 if you add those up. See if I got anything else. No, that's it. All right. So into the close, I've got an equal bag. I've got some calls and I've got some puts. And I've got one Google call, all right, which is pretty much break even right there. A little bit heavier on the calls than I am on the puts because we gapped up and we're still bullish. All right, so that's what I got for tomorrow. All right, so there's the 10-minute chart for SPY. Let's take a look at QQQ. All right, QQQ did the same thing. Again, okay, we gapped way up over the green line, over the pivot, over the red line. Okay, became irrelevant, the game plan. But you did have green erases red entries. All right, so here's your red pullback. Green erased it right over the top of that. That was an entry to trade up into this area here. Then we had a 10-minute downtrend that could have been traded down into the opening candle, right there, made a lower high and another downtrend, all right, which came down here into the opening candle right down through there. So it double bottomed right there. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, never fill gap. Okay, price action for SPY and QQQ. Let's examine it. All right, let's go to a clean chart. Okay, so if we look at price action, all right, what do we have? Okay, we've got a move up and holding the higher ground. Okay, let me share that with you. Okay, price gaps up. Let's use the yellow. And let's pick up something a little fatter. Okay, price gaps up and we hold the higher ground. That is a bullish environment. All right, so that's why I wasn't interested in playing the puts. All right, or the 10-minute downtrend under VWAP. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, we've got consolidation on the 21st, and then we've got consolidation on the 22nd that's over prior consolidation. Okay, still no higher highs yet. Okay, that's a bullish environment. Then we've got today, we've got more consolidation over prior consolidation, and we're holding the higher ground. That's a bullish event, all right? Therefore, I'm a little rich on the call side than I am on the puts, all right? But it's anybody's game coming out of here tomorrow morning, all right? So bullish environment, okay? You got consolidation over prior consolidation. Consolidation over prior consolidation. This could continue. We could get consolidation over prior consolidation tomorrow. We'll see what happens. There's QQQ on the 10-minute. All right? Same as SPY. SPY had the same thing happening. All right? Let's take that off. And let's try SPY. Okay, you can see consolidation from the 21st, the 22nd, and for today's price action, the 23rd. Okay, coming into that downtrend line. Okay, notice they didn't exit the area in a hurry. All right, now we hit it. Probably going to do a double tap to see if they can get through it. They're probably going to want to retest it. All right, probably going to retest it either tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe later this week. I am looking for a retest of that downtrend line. Okay, this is a prior retest from when we tested it here. Notice we had two tests on this day. All right, on the, what day was that? That was the 2nd. All right, and then on the, looks like at the end of the 2nd, we came back and retested it one more time, and that caused us to gap down. All right, so there's QQQ and SPY, okay? Let's take a look at QQQ on the daily chart, all right? And let's see if they got an uptrend. Okay, we've got one candle here over the 17. They made a higher high. QQ, that's SPY. Let's try QQQ. Okay, QQQ, did they make a higher high? No, they did not. So QQQ still stuck in a downtrend. Let's take a look at FNGA. All right, FNGA got a candle up here over the 17. Did they make a higher high? No, they did not. Still stuck in a downtrend, but not moving down. They're moving up. Okay, FNGA, price action, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish cross, over the falling 17, okay, on the quadrant, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, still in quadrant 1, that's still bearish. All right, QQQ, all right, QQQ no longer in the lower third, so that's neutral. You go down, you give it up, that's neutral. Same as SPY, all right, you go down, you give it up, that's just neutral. Okay, so there's QQQ. Let's take a look at Diamond Dow. Diamond Dow no longer in the lower third, so that's neutral. Higher low, higher high, closing over a bearish trap. Under the falling 17, under the downtrend line, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay, just neutral right through here. Let's take a look at IWM. IWM, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap or a bullish cross, closing over the falling 17, closing under the all-time high anchored VWAP, still in the lower third, so that's still bearish. Okay, if they're still in the lower third, they're still bearish. Okay, let's take a look at our technicals. T2122. All right, so we camped out up here in the buy and the overbought zone all day, making the bears uncomfortable, drinking the wine. All right, so there's T2122. There's Goldilocks, all right, camping out in the three bears beds right there. Okay, up here in the buy zone and the overbought zone, making the bears uncomfortable right through there. Okay, so all day today, camped out up there. Should be some green on the T2123. Let's take a peek. We gapped up. We got some green on the gap, but we had a pullback. All right, got some red there on that pullback under VWAP. Little red, green, and then some more red right there. Okay, good news. The bears couldn't fill the gap. That's some good news. Some more good news. Looks like we finally broke out of the flag. I hope it's not a false breakout. We happen to finally make a little higher high. Not much, but a higher high according to the flag. That's all we got. Okay, really need to bust that high. All right, but we got a higher high. It is what it is. I'll take it. All right, at least maybe we're no longer flatline and maybe we start moving up. Price action up over the falling 200 SMA there. Okay, and we held the bullish gap open. All right, now you've seen it before. We've gone days and days without filling bearish gaps. Can we, in fact, hold this bullish gap open for more than just 6.5 hours? There's T2123. On the 3-bar chart, okay, no green candle bars today. 3 more red ones. Still a flat line, all right? Still a little mini bull flag inside of a big bear flag where the fabric of the flag is 10 times as long as the flagpole. Okay, so on the bigger picture, not seeing anything waking up yet. I'm getting some clues, all right, on the smaller time frames, but nothing happening on the bigger time frames. This is the 3-bar chart. If you take a trading day and break it up into 3 equal segments, you get a 130-minute chart. This will be a 3 equal segments of 130 minutes. Right? Is that right? 130 minutes instead of 120 minutes. Okay, so there it is. 3 more red candle bars. Still looking comatose. Still looking like a cardiac arrest. Still looking like it's horizontal and no longer vertical, up and walking around. All right? So on the bigger time frame, I'm not seeing anything waking up yet. On the smaller time frame, back here on the 15, all right, if you zoom out, you got a little bit of like he just picked his head up off the pillow right there. All right, so need to see him up and walking around. All right, that's T2123. Let's take a look
Order
at
filled.
FNGA. Nice bullish gap that never got filled today. A gap up holding the higher ground, that's bullish. A bullish gap that didn't get filled, that's bullish. Up over a flat 200, that's bullish. All right, so nice work on that. What we didn't get, we got on the smaller time frame. Here's a high. We made a higher high, yes. But we still haven't cleared this high over here yet. Okay, like to see us clear this high and finally fill this bearish gap from back in the 10th. Still not filled yet, okay? It's been 7-8 days, trading days, and we still haven't filled this bearish gap right here. Okay, the bullish gaps, I could care less if they get filled, all right? But the bearish gaps, I want to see some bulls fill some bearish gaps, all right? See how this one still got a little gap right, that gap got filled. This gap still not filled, this bearish gap right here. All right, got a bullish gap that's still open there and a big bull gap right there. Hopefully, we can get some follow through with this and it's not exhaustion into that downtrend line. So there's FNGA, green right out of the gate. Of course, we gapped up, took a little 4 martini lunch there. It came back and did some more trying to get back up over VWAP, like that, FNGA. Okay, Google reports tomorrow night after the close. So we'll see what they got. Alphabet, all right? That's $3.5 trillion worth of market cap. That is capable of ripping the markets, okay? So we'll see where they go tomorrow. Okay, they got the Pixel phone, among other things, AI, and all kinds of other search engine stuff that they get paid big bucks for. So we'll see what happens with them tomorrow after the close. All right, Intel also reports tomorrow after the close. Intel makes a lot of these chips for personal home computers. All right, so we'll see what they're going to do tomorrow. So that's FNGA, holding the higher ground. I like it. All right, let's go take a look at a few sectors. Start off with the first sector, XLE. Here's energy. Okay, energy got higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap over the hooking 17 right here, XLE. Okay, put on the quad lines. And what do we got on the quad lines? How come the quad lines aren't on there? Let's go to the daily chart. There we are, quad lines. Okay, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap. All right, under the falling 17. Still down here in the lower third, that's bearish. All right, still haven't made a higher high. All right, so that's still in a downtrend. All right, let's take a look at still, see they took out this low, and this low. They made a lower low. So XLE still in a downtrend right there. Still underneath both of these downtrend lines, underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP right there, okay, or the 12-month high anchored VWAP right there, okay.
Order filled.
And down here in the lower third, that's bearish. I just want to review Diamond Dow. Nope, they didn't get a higher high. NIWM. Nope, they didn't get a higher high. They got to make it over this high over here, okay? So let's take a look at USO. USO, different from XLE, lower high, lower low, closing under the bullish trap, under the falling 17, under this 3-year high anchored VWAP, post-COVID high right there, okay? Down here in the lower third, that's still bearish. All right, you move up, you give it up, and more, that's bearish. Down here in the lower third, that's bearish. USO. Still in a downtrend. All right, still in a downtrend. I mean, you could call that an uptrend. That's really not much. That's a 1-candle high right there. Technically, it's an uptrend because they made a higher high than this candle. But, I mean, that's just a 1-candle valley there. It's kind of tough to call that, but if you want to, you can call it an uptrend. It's just a label. Think about it, okay? So in a downtrend, but not moving down. All right, so there's USO. Let's take a look at UNG. UNG got a higher low, higher high, closing under a bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the 12-month high anchored VWAP, under the uptrend line, down here, quadrant. Well, in the lower third, that's still bearish and still in a downtrend. Okay, that's UNG. GLD. All right, GLD got a lower high and a lower low, closing inside a bullish trap, over the rising 17, over the prior all-time high anchored VWAP, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. Price action in the upper quadrant up there, number 4, that's bullish, over the uptrend line. Okay, that's GLD. Let's take a look at SLV. SLV, nice candle for today. Higher low, higher high, closing over the bullish trap, over the hooking 17, over the 12-year high anchored VWAP and the 6-month high anchored VWAP. Up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish. All right, still in a downtrend, but not moving down. They're moving up. All right. I guess if they have a pullback and take out that high, that would be bullish. You got a couple 1-candle pullbacks here. I don't know. It's kind of tough to say that that's a pullback, It's just one candle. Technically, it is uptrend, all right? But up here, they got to take out that high for me. To take out that high, then they negate the downtrend. All right, so up here, quadrant 4, that's bullish, SLV. Let's take a look at SMH. All right, any good news on the SMH? Higher low, higher high, closing over bearish trap, closing under the falling 17, still in lower third, under the downtrend line, and under the all-time high anchored VWAP. Still bearish, still in a downtrend. Okay, we need this and the XLK. All right, XLK still in a downtrend. Higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish cross. Closing over the falling 17. No longer in the lower third, so just neutral. Closing under the all-time high anchored VWAP and the uptrend line. All right, price action, neutral up here in the middle ground. Not in the lower third, not in the upper third. So it's neutral through here. Okay, that's XLK. All right, that's the big brother to SMH. Let's take a look at XLF. All right, financials just neutral. Okay, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap, over the falling 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, not in the upper third, not in the lower third, just neutral. Okay, again, you go down, you give it up, that's neutral. Same thing, you go up and you give it up, that's neutral. All right, there's XLF. Let's take a look at IYT. IYT got a lower high, no, excuse me, back up. Higher high, higher low, closing over a bullish cross, but under the falling 17, that's the red dots. Under the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's the pink line right there. Under the midpoint down here in the lower third, quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4, quadrant 1, all right? So in the lower third, that's bearish. Still in, let me just see if they broke it. They didn't get up over the 17 there, okay? So still in a downtrend. IYT, transports. All right, any questions for today? Trend indicator must have been green today till the close of SPY. Probably. Are you talking about the daily? Yeah, it was probably green until they closed right there. And SPY dime closed with a red trend indicator. Closed with a green trend indicator, so half leaning towards bullish. Yes, on the daily. Let's take a look at QQQ. Yep, that's green. They closed over it. And IWM. Yep, that's green. They closed over it. He's talking about the 17 EMA right here. See, it's green. It just turned green today. All right, because they closed above it. Finally, above it. Notice this one closed above it, and this one closed above it. So you got two green ones here. All right, and then red takes over. All right. All right, traders, that's it for me for today. I'll see you guys all tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning. All right, let's see what they're going to give us tomorrow morning. Should be interesting. It's anybody's game, all right? We're acting bullish on the smaller time frames, all right? We just converted the daily downtrend to a daily uptrend. So we just negated that on the SPY. Some of the other products, not so much. They're still stuck in downtrends. All right, we got a 2-hour uptrend on the SPY, but we got a 10-minute downtrend on the SPY. So we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. Should be interesting. We'll see what happens. Looking like the T2123 is waking up. All right, looks like the guy lifted his head off the pillow. It was comatose, flatline for a little while. So here's lifting his head up off the pillow, unless he's got one of those adjustable beds right there. All right, maybe it's just the adjustable bed, or maybe just a false breakout. We'll see. Daily uptrend on SPY, yes, because see this. I'm going to pick up a clean chart, Roger. All right. All right. See this high right here? Okay. See the valley? I'm gonna map it out for you so you can see this. It's hard to see. All right. So let's just. Okay. So price came from this high down to this low, and then from that low up to this high, which happened to cross the falling 17 right there. Okay. So that's the one we have to break. That peak right there. Then came back down. Okay. Made an equal low. Went back up. All right. And on the way up, the high here is 545. The high here, 544. So they made a higher high. Okay. Equal low, but a higher high. All right. So that negates the downtrend and converts the uptrend right there. Okay, not by much. Okay, but they made a higher high than that candle right there for that peak. Does that explain it? No, it doesn't matter where it closes. It's the fact that price got up and made the higher high. All right, so we'll see if they can keep it going. They might not be able to keep it going, and they might take out this low and negate the uptrend. If they take out this low down here, they will negate the uptrend and be back into a downtrend. All right? All right, that's all it takes for them, for price action to bust that low, and then we negate the downtrend. Negate the uptrend if we bust that low right there. Okay. All right, traders, that's it for me for today. Not really a great day. Really crappy. Just as Stu, price action. All right. Let me just trash that out, and I'll show you why it's crappy price action. Okay, first of all, if you traded the first 15 minutes, it already got there, and then by the time it broke, there was no run. See, here's the first 10-minute candle. So let's say you traded the breakout of the box. It didn't go anywhere. Okay, then you got the 10-minute downtrend on a huge $15 gap up, which is kind of like, that's, it's not, it is a downtrend, all right? But, I mean, you can't get in till it breaks the rubber band candle, and here's the break right here, and it only goes a little bit further, about $3 more. Okay, so there's the rubber band candle, there's the break of that rubber band candle, and then you can see price action just goes a little bit more, and then it bounces. All right, so with big gap up, probably figure it's going to come back to the midpoint, and it did. All right, and then that ended there, and then we did a little charity bounce right there, which gave you kind of a 10-minute uptrend, but it wasn't over VWAP, which made that impossible to play unless you were trading 2-minute uptrends, okay? And then you started another 10-minute downtrend under VWAP, but you didn't have any red erases green, because here's where the red would have stopped. The green would have stopped right there. And you can see we double bottomed right there. So you never had a red erases green event right there, because this would have been the green from this low up to that high, from this low up to that high right there. Okay, so you can see there never was a red erases green event to trade the 10-minute downtrend. All right, you're still in this pullback here. So it made it for a tough day. It really did. Uptrend didn't go anywhere. See, here's nice 10-minute uptrend, But here's where the first candle started, way up here by the moon. All right, and then you got the 15-minute breakout that didn't go anywhere. All you got was a 10-minute downtrend, maybe the gap fill, but we're so bullish, I really didn't see the gap fill coming at all. Finally break the rubber band candle, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4 candles. That's it. All right, and one of the 4 was green. Actually, 2 of the 4. 2 of the 5 were green out of 3 right there. And one barely made a lower low on the red ones. So made for crappy trading today. All right, there was no edge. Matter of fact, I shared in the room that there was no edge for me. Okay, if you look at my posting right here, I have no edge. Price is consolidating. See, we gap up and we just went straight across. Okay, that's it. Then we were about to start a 10-minute downtrend right here. Okay, I was on the 3-minute chart right there. Okay, we're just about to start that 10-minute downtrend with a rubber band candle right there. So made for crappy trading. It was very, very miserable day. And that's what happens when it gaps up big like that. There's nothing to be had. There's no edge. There's no trend. There's nothing to... It makes for very difficult trading. So if you made money today, pat yourself on the back. All right? Because that was not an easy day. All right, that's it for me. See you in the morning, 8 o'clock. We'll do it again.